Some people are born under a bad star. This guy was born under a falling one, and the worst part is he never even got a warning, no sign from the universe, no heads up, just the full weight of misfortune landing on him from the very first second of his existence. The exact moment his mother held him for the first time, his father got the call that their entire business had collapsed overnight. No warning, no cushion, just poverty landing on a newborn like a curse with perfect timing. The family went from struggling to drowning in a single phone call. And you would think that moment right there, that rock bottom, would be the lowest point, that things could only go up from there. But you would be completely wrong. Because for this guy, rock bottom was not the floor. It was just the starting line. And if you think that was just a rough start that eventually evened out, stick around. Because it never evened out, not once, not even close. Go out to eat, drinks end up all over him without fail, every single time. It did not even matter where he sat or how careful he was. Someone was always going to spill something. Go shopping, items he never touched somehow find their way into his bag, and suddenly he's being treated like a criminal in the middle of a store while everyone watches. Walk down the street, there's always a car with his name on it, sometimes even a truck. Bad luck did not just follow this guy. It moved in, unpacked its bags, redecorated the place, and made itself completely at home. It was not a visitor, it was a permanent resident. After 18 years of being the universe's favorite punching bag, of being the guy that every disaster seemed to find no matter what, he finally dies. And honestly, for someone with his kind of luck, making it to 18 at all is an achievement worth acknowledging. Most people with that level of consistent misfortune would not have lasted nearly as long. But he did, somehow, until he did not. But here is where the story takes a turn, because dying is not the end of his story, it is actually the beginning. And what comes next is something nobody, not even him, could have seen coming. When he opens his eyes again, he is no longer in the world he remembers. Everything is different, the air feels different, the light looks different, and the first thing he sees is a woman who looks absolutely nothing like what you would expect a deity to look like. She is young, rough around the edges, leaning back in her chair with her legs kicked up on the table, and a cigarette hanging from her lips like she has not got a single care in the entire universe. She wastes no time letting him know what is happening. He is getting reincarnated into another world. Fresh start, new life, clean slate, and as a bonus she is throwing in 3 special skills to help him survive. The catch, according to her, all 3 of them are basically worthless, total duds, broken from the start. She might as well be handing him a sword with no blade and calling it a weapon. She asks his name. He tells her, Muto Kusha. The god shakes her head and comments that his luck is genuinely awful. Like she has seen bad luck before, processed thousands of unfortunate souls, and even she is a little caught off guard by just how consistently terrible his has been. She is almost impressed in a grim sort of way. And then she notices the smile. It stops her mid-sentence. She goes quiet for just a second because it is not a warm smile, it is not even a nervous one, it is something else entirely. Something that sits right at the edge of unsettling, like he knows a secret that changes the meaning of everything she just said. Like pain and misfortune are old friends he has already made peace with. The god freezes for just a moment, genuinely caught off guard for what might be the first time in a very long while. Then Kusha speaks quietly, almost to himself. They say fortune favors those who smile. Either that is a complete lie or you seriously have no idea what smiling actually looks like. The room goes still, even the cigarette smoke seems to pause. For a moment, even the god does not have a comeback. And for a being who has seen and heard everything across countless reincarnations, that is saying something. She stares at him for just a second longer than she intended to, then she shakes it off, clears her throat and gets into the skills because there is work to do. She explains that the skills are essentially power amplifiers, the kind that let him operate at a level far beyond what a normal person could manage, buffs that push him past the natural limits of a human body. The 3 skills she is handing him are super speedy regeneration, which she also calls indomitable spirit. She breaks them down one by one. Starting with super speedy regeneration, any injury he takes can heal almost instantly. Cuts, breaks, damage of almost any kind, his body snaps back faster than it should be possible. Sounds completely overpowered, right? Except there is a hard limit on how many times it can activate. It is not unlimited, it is not infinite. Once he burns through all his uses, that is it, no more miraculous recovery, no second chances. Just whatever state his body is in when that counter hits 0. So it is powerful, but it comes with a built-in expiration. Use it wisely or it becomes useless at the worst possible moment. The second skill is agelessness. Simple, clean, no complicated conditions. He does not age. He stays exactly as he is right now, locked in his prime with all the time in the world stretched out in front of him. He will never grow old, never weaken from age, never watch his body slowly fail him the way it does for everyone else. He gets to keep everything he has right now and hold on to it indefinitely. At this point, Kusha is staring at the god like she has completely lost her mind. He is turning these skills over in his head and nothing about them is reading as worthless to him. These are duds. From where he is sitting, these sound absolutely incredible, almost unfairly strong. He starts to ask how these possibly qualify as failures, and she tells him to hold that thought because the third skill is where things get complicated and where the real problem lives. Grit, indomitable spirit. She breaks it down using a game-style comparison because it is the clearest way to explain it. Every living creature has a health gauge. Think of it as the total amount of life a body can sustain before it gives out entirely. Injuries drain it, sickness drains it, the worse the damage, the faster it drops. When that gauge hits zero, that is it, no coming back from it, the body simply stops. But grit, indomitable spirit, if it activates at exactly the right moment, right when that gauge is about to flatline, it snaps him back from the edge with just one single point remaining. One tiny, barely there sliver of life, just enough to keep the heart beating and the lungs working, just enough to keep going. In other words, he cannot stay dead. Every time he should die, every time the damage should be enough to finish him, this skill catches him at the last second and refuses to let it happen. On paper, that is the most broken ability anyone has ever been handed. It sounds like a cheat code for existence. Kusha is not complaining about any of this. As far as he is concerned, all three skills sound incredible, and he genuinely cannot see where the problem is supposed to be. But she cuts him off before he can get too comfortable with that idea. There is a condition for the third skill, a condition she has never, in all her time doing this, seen anyone actually meet. And it is the kind of condition that sounds simple until you really think about what it means. He must not fear death. Not pretend to be brave when it counts. Not tell himself a story about being ready while his heart rate spikes. Not push through the fear and act anyway. He must genuinely, completely, at the most fundamental biological level, not fear dying at all. Zero fear. None. And that, she says quietly, is the problem. Every living being is wired for survival from the moment it exists. Fear of death is not a choice or a personality trait. It is not something you can train away or think your way out of. It is biology. It is the most basic programming every living thing carries. She has watched countless souls come through this place, from every kind of life imaginable, from every level of suffering and hardship and pain. And not one of them, not a single person across all of those reincarnations, has ever truly had no fear of dying when the moment actually arrived. Even people who say they want to die, who believe completely that they are ready for it, who have made peace with it on every level they can access consciously, even they panic when the moment arrives. Because pain hits first. And where pain goes, fear follows. It is automatic. It is involuntary. It is the body protecting itself whether the mind agrees or not. So as far as she is concerned, that third skill might as well be locked forever. He is going into that new world with two solid abilities and one that is essentially decorative. And with the kind of luck he has been carrying his entire life, she does not give him particularly good odds of making it very far. A moment later, he is somewhere else entirely. All forest, trees stretching in every direction as far as he can see, thick undergrowth covering the ground, weeds pushing up through every gap, and somewhere nearby the quiet sound of moving water, a stream close enough to reach. It is not exactly the dramatic entrance into a new world that most people would hope for. No town, no people, no road, just wilderness. But it is enough to survive on for now, and survival is the baseline. Him like it has been waiting for the quiet to arrive. A woman's voice, apologizing, saying she was never able to do enough for him, that she was sorry, that she wished things had been different. The words land somewhere deep and heavy. He kneels at the stream and rinses his face with cold water, and then he forces that same strange, unsettling smile back onto his face, deliberately. Like he is physically washing the memory off his skin and replacing it with something harder. He stands up and looks around properly. There are mushrooms nearby that look like they could be edible, vines that might come in useful for building or climbing, clean water right there within reach. For just a second, something almost like relief settles over him, a tiny, unexpected feeling that maybe things could actually work out this time. He's even quietly glad he did not land in a town packed with people. Crowds have never been kind to him, they never went well. He would take trees and silence over strangers every single time without hesitation. And then the universe, right on schedule, reminds him exactly who he is and what his life looks like. Before he can even finish that thought, before he can take another breath or take another step, something massive hits him from behind with a force that turns the entire world sideways in an instant. He is launched through the air like he weighs absolutely nothing, like he is a piece of paper caught in a wind, and when he finally crashes into the ground, the impact rattles every bone in his body, and he barely manages to hold onto consciousness. For a moment he just lies there, then he looks up, Then he looks down at where his arm should be. It is not there. Not hurt, not dislocated, not broken, just gone, completely gone. The severed arm is lying on the ground several feet away from him, separated cleanly from the rest of him like it was never attached. The scream that tears out of him feels like it could split the sky in half, like it could reach every corner of this new world and bounce back. Pure shock, pure pain, pure disbelief, all hitting at exactly the same time. But then something happens that makes absolutely no sense to any part of his brain. His arm starts moving back, or more accurately, the place where his arm used to be starts rebuilding itself from nothing. He watches it happen in real time, bone first, then muscle layering over it, then skin closing over everything like a wound healing and fast forward. Within seconds his arm is completely restored, fully functional, like it was never gone at all. The skill the god mentioned was not exaggerating, not even slightly. The gorilla standing in front of him, however, is completely unimpressed by any of this. It is not confused or thrown off or curious, it is just furious, like his refusal to stay properly damaged is a personal insult. It grabs him in one enormous hand and squeezes until the sound of bones beginning to crack under the pressure fills the air. Then, without any particular effort, it lifts him off the ground completely and holds him up. And before he can process what is happening next, the beast opens its mouth and drops him directly in. He gets torn apart inside that mouth piece by piece, and the world goes completely dark. From wherever she is watching, the god has the entire thing playing out on a massive screen in front of her. She smokes slowly. She does not look particularly shocked. She called this from the very beginning. He cannot make it through even the very first obstacle this world puts in front of him, which means he is useless to whatever larger plan she has in motion. With the kind of luck he carries, she makes the decision to cut her losses, move on and find a different candidate entirely. Someone with better odds, someone the universe is not actively working against. She reaches for a file, then she freezes. Because an arm suddenly punches its way out of the gorilla's mouth. She stares. A second later, Kusha hauls himself out of the gorilla completely, all of him, somehow still in one piece against every logical explanation. The god does not move. She just stares at her screen with an expression she has not had in a very long time, something close to genuine disbelief. He is alive. He actually triggered grit, indomitable spirit, the skill she wrote off as essentially impossible for any ordinary person to ever activate, the one that requires the one thing she has never seen in all the countless souls she has watched come through reincarnation. The second he is free and standing in the forest again, he screams into the trees. Why am I still alive? He got handed 3 skills a god herself called useless. He got dropped alone into an unfamiliar world with no preparation and no information. And then on his very first day, before he could even get his bearings, he got eaten alive by a monster. He genuinely thought that was it, that was finally the end. And even that, even the one thing he thought was certain, got taken from him at the last second. So yeah, he has every right to be losing it right now. The god cannot look away from her screen. She is looking at something she has genuinely never seen before, a complete anomaly. A person who does not just accept death but actively wants it more desperately than anyone she has ever encountered. And the more she sits with that thought, the more she realizes she actually understands why, because she has not read his full file yet, she has only seen the surface. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story keeps getting heavier the further in you go. Kusha is still trapped inside his own head, breaking down, ranting at the sky, genuinely wondering why the universe keeps finding new ways to deal him the worst possible hand every single time without exception. The god watches him and cannot process the fact that he is calling a literal miracle the worst thing that has happened to him today. Something about that makes her stop. She reaches for his full file and starts reading through the complete record of his past life from the beginning. It begins with a car accident. A brutal one, the kind that should not have had a survivor. He loses so much blood on that pavement that the medical professionals who arrive are genuinely surprised he is still breathing. While he is lying there bleeding out, his father is nearby arguing loudly with the officers at the scene, more focused on the logistics of what just happened than on the fact that his son is on the ground. His mother is crying somewhere off to the side, but the tears are hard to read. He makes it through somehow. Against every reasonable expectation, he pulls through and ends up in a hospital bed. A nurse comes in to check on him and asks about the pain medication, whether it is helping, whether it is enough. She calls him by a nickname that he apparently already carries, Indomitable. She says it with a kind of tired warmth, like she means it, even though the irony of calling this particular kid Indomitable is almost too much to hold. He tries to move his arm to test what still works, and the pain that comes back is immediate and significant. The nurse sighs and tells him honestly that they are limited in what they can do for pain management when the patient is a minor. He just has to get through it, bear it. There is no other option available to him right now. Then his parents walk in. They ask the nurse about his condition with exactly the right amount of concern in their voices. Practiced concern. The kind you use when other people are watching. She tells them he is healing well and they thank her appropriately. Then they pull the curtain closed behind them, cutting off the outside world, and they look at him. Those smiles do not reach their eyes. They never do. They ask how he is doing in a tone that sounds caring enough if you are not paying close attention. Then his mother lifts his shirt. She is not checking for injuries. She is not making sure he is okay. She is locating a specific scar on his back and checking that it is exactly where and how it should be for documentation purposes. She needs to confirm that this scar is officially recorded as having come from the accident. When the nurse confirms that yes, it is all labeled correctly in the paperwork, both parents visibly relax, their shoulders drop, their expressions ease, not because their son is going to be okay. Because the paperwork is clean, because everything is in order for the payout. Because a child victim in an accident means a significantly larger compensation amount, and the numbers were always what this was about. His pain is not a tragedy to them, it is a transaction. And this is not a one-time event. This is not them having one terrible moment in an otherwise decent history of parenting. This is a pattern, a long, deliberate, carefully constructed pattern that has been running for years. Every messed up incident in his life traces back directly to them. The falls staged in restaurants to generate grounds for compensation claims. The items quietly slipped into his bag without his knowledge to create situations they could control and manipulate. The car accident itself, all of it engineered, all of it deliberate, all of it using him as the instrument. And now, sitting in that hospital while their son recovers, they are already mapping out the next one. Already talking in low voices about upgrading to a better car, about what the payout from this situation will allow them to do next, about which scheme makes the most sense to run after this one closes out. Somewhere along the way, they convince themselves that his birth is what brought misfortune to the family, that he is the reason things are hard, that poverty arrived with him and has followed him ever since. And because they were suffocating under the weight of having nothing, because the pressure of that life was more than they knew how to handle, they redirected every bit of it onto him, every day, in the cruelest ways they could find, not parenting, not even close to parenting. Just pain delivered consistently to a child who had no way to leave and nowhere else to go. He grew up with the same thought running through his head like a broken record on a loop. I get hit because I deserve it. If I were just a little luckier, a little better, a little less of a burden, they would be happy with me. They would smile at me and actually mean it. He believed it for a long time, longer than he should have. Because when you are a child and the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones hurting you, the easiest explanation your brain can reach for is that you are the problem. Eventually, he figured out the truth, that none of it was ever his fault, that they were simply wrong in a way that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with who they chose to be. But by the time that clarity came, he had been ground down so completely and so consistently for so long that there was nothing left to fight back with. The realization came too late to do much with. He understood it, but he could not feel anything about it anymore. One day his father beats him badly enough that basic functioning afterward is almost impossible. He shouts that every single thing wrong in their lives is Kush's fault, that he has always been the source of their problems, that he will never be anything else. Then he walks out and tells him to have the entire place cleaned and in order before he gets back. And Kusha does it. Swollen face, body aching, moving slowly but moving, because he knows exactly what the alternative looks like, and it is worse than this. While he works, a couple on the television is talking warmly and openly about how their child is the most important and precious thing in their world, how nothing compares to the love they have for them. Kusha keeps moving, keeps cleaning, does not stop, does not let himself sit with it. Another night, his mother comes home from work and immediately takes a hanger to him because dinner was not ready when she walked through the door. Another night, his father punches him squarely because he did not laugh convincingly enough at a joke. So Kusha starts practicing. He works on the smile in private, training himself to produce it on demand, to laugh at the right moments with enough believability that it does not trigger anything. He makes it automatic, a performance he can run without thinking. His entire life becomes a cycle of absorbing impact and finding new and more effective ways to feel less of it. He teaches himself to go numb on purpose. Total shutdown. If nothing registers, nothing can break through. If you cannot feel the hit cannot reach you. He gets so good at it that even on a hospital bed he tests himself by shifting his weight against the pain, checking whether it reaches him, deciding it does not quite land the way it used to, and lying back down almost grateful for the distance. Because he knows that if all the accumulated pain from all the accumulated years ever arrived at once, all at the same moment, he would not be able to survive it. The only thing standing between him and that is the wall he has built and maintained piece by piece over years of practice. And then his mother walks into that hospital room and tells him to stop taking so long and get discharged already. She has housework at home that needs doing and he is the one responsible for it. That is the moment when the picture becomes completely, undeniably clear. They are not parents. They are something else entirely, something darker, wearing a parent's face as a costume they never quite committed to wearing properly. After going through all of it, after replaying every scene and reading every entry in his file, the god finally understands the full weight of what she is looking at. And something clicks into place that was not clear to her before. That condition for triggering indomitable spirit, having genuinely no fear of death, is not a mindset you can adopt. It is not an attitude you can practice into existence. It is not something you arrive at through enough meditation or enough acceptance or enough preparation. It goes deeper than any of that. Pain is one of the body's most fundamental survival systems. The brain uses it as an alarm, as a signal that something is wrong and that you need to respond to protect yourself. The moment pain hits, fear follows, automatically, without asking permission, without consulting what you believe or what you want or how ready you think you are. Even a small spike of fear is the body doing exactly what it evolved to do, pushing you to avoid danger, pushing you to stay alive, overriding everything else in the name of survival. Fear of pain and fear of death are not two separate things. They are expressions of the same system, which means having genuinely no fear of death means having complete and total control over pain. Not high tolerance, not impressive endurance, total control, to the point where pain cannot trigger the automatic fear response at all, where the alarm goes off and nothing answers it. That is not something suffering alone produces. You can suffer enormously and still flinch. You can want to die and still panic when the moment comes. Even people who are completely sincere in their desire to stop existing usually find that the body fights back at the last second because pain arrives first and the survival instinct fires before the conscious mind can override it. That is why she calls it impossible. That is why she has never seen anyone meet this condition in all her time handling reincarnations. Back in the forest, Kusha pulls himself together slowly and looks around. The gorilla is dead. He notices that and lets out a short, quiet laugh, figuring the monster's luck finally ran out too. But then the god's words drift back to him, that he will not make it through this world with only those 3 skills. Then an arrow comes out of nowhere and punches straight through his chest. The impact knocks him sideways and everything goes cold and distant all at once. He looks up slowly and sees a girl sitting in a tree directly above him, staring down at him with an expression caught somewhere between alertness and confusion. She calls him dangerous. Then she narrows her eyes, studying him, trying to figure out what exactly she is looking at, because what she is seeing does not match anything she recognizes. Back with the god, she is already moving through her files with sudden urgency. The girl in the tree is Runa Kakon, one of hers. Runa climbs down from the tree and the sight of him still alive, still upright, still breathing after taking a direct arrow to the chest makes her go immediately and completely tense. She yanks her bowstring back without even having an arrow knocked and one materializes out of pure air between her fingers. She tells him to stop pretending to be human and show what he actually is because whatever he is, she is not buying the human story. He just gives her that smile, the same one that made the god pause. Up close it is even more unsettling. Then he calmly tells her he is human. Runa does not believe it for 1 second. Nobody gets crushed, eaten alive by a forest monster and comes out intact on the other side unless they are something other than human. It is simply not possible. He mentions that the god said something pretty similar to him earlier. Runa pauses and asks if he means that short, chain-smoking, permanently irritated little brat who looks like she is one bad interaction away from throwing hands with the entire universe. He confirms that is exactly who he means. Somewhere else entirely, the god hears every word of that description, throws something directly at her screen hard enough to crack it, and immediately goes to find more cigarettes because apparently her entire job description has become stress management and nicotine consumption, and today is not helping. Back in the forest, Runa studies him for a moment and asks if he is one of the reincarnated ones like her. Before she can get any further than that, her footing slips on the uneven ground and she drops straight down into the bushes below her. Kusha steps forward automatically to warn her about the roots, but then he stops because he sees what is actually happening. A massive snake has already wrapped itself completely around her body, squeezing steadily with the kind of patient, methodical force that snakes use when they are serious about the outcome. She swings her bow at it and the snake snaps it in half like it is made of dry paper. She yells at him to stop standing there and do something useful. The snake keeps tightening, her voice starts losing its edge. He does not move immediately. The honest question running through his head is what exactly he is supposed to do against something that size. And the second honest question is why he should save someone who shot an arrow through his chest less than 3 minutes ago. But then she calls out one more time, and something in the sound of it reaches him somewhere unexpected. It cuts through everything else and drops him straight back into his own past, into the specific visceral memory of being small and getting beat and calling out for help that never came, calling and calling into a silence that never broke. The difference between then and now is that right now he is the one who can do something. He is the one who could break the silence if he chose to. His body moves before his brain finishes the thought. He steps forward and throws a punch at the snake, expecting nothing from it, just motion, just the instinct of someone trying to do something even when they do not know what they are doing. The snake explodes. Not recoils, not loosens, explodes, completely and entirely destroyed on a single impact. Both of them go completely still and stare at what just happened, trying to process it from their respective positions. Rona asks if he did that. He shouts back that the snake just died even though he barely touched it. She fires back that snakes do not spontaneously destroy themselves. He looks down at his hand with genuine confusion, turning it over, trying to understand what just happened. He wonders quietly if one of his supposedly useless skills just did something because one punch should not be able to produce that result under any circumstances he is aware of. Then Runa does something that genuinely surprises him. Despite everything that just happened between them in the last several minutes, she thanks him, directly and sincerely. Then she apologizes for putting an arrow through him earlier, admitting she genuinely believed he was one of the monsters that populate this forest, and she was operating on that assumption when she shot him. Then she asks if he is reincarnated too, and whether that impossible punching power is one of the skills the god assigned him. He shuts that down immediately. He got healing skills, that is it, that is the full list. He has no idea what just happened with the snake or where that came from. She considers him for a moment and then arrives at the quiet conclusion that hurting him is probably not going to be a straightforward task regardless. Since they are already talking about skills, he asked about the arrow she pulled from thin air. She answers by producing a full robe from nothing right in front of him. Her skill is creation. She can produce anything she understands well enough to know how it is built. She hands him the robe and tells him he cannot keep wandering around in whatever remains of his current clothing. He takes it carefully, clearly not accustomed to someone offering him something without there being a cost attached somewhere. He thanks her quietly. He asks about the explosive arrows specifically. She says that is just her own addition. Standard arrows she constructs herself with some additional force built into them, nothing particularly exotic about the method, just applied knowledge. They properly introduce themselves to each other and something in the space between them shifts. The tension does not disappear entirely, but it stops being hostile. It becomes something more like cautious and uncertain. Runa says they should not stay in this forest any longer than they have to. It is full of things trying to kill them and they should find a safe place, maybe a town, somewhere with walls and other people and a reasonable expectation of making it through the night. He does not want any of that. Instead, he picks up a nearby strip of cloth, wraps it methodically around a low branch to form a loop, positions it at the right height, puts it around his own neck and calmly announces that he intends to die right here. There is no drama in how he says it, no performance, just a statement of intent delivered in a completely flat voice. Runa moves immediately. She pulls him out before it goes anywhere and stands in front of him staring at him like she is completely recalculating everything she thought she understood about this person in the last 30 seconds. He looks genuinely disappointed, not embarrassed, not defensive, just disappointed that it did not work. He tells her she ruined it and that this is exactly the reason he does not like being around other people. It is his life, he says. He should be the one who decides what to do with it. Runa does not raise her voice. She does not lecture him or panic. She just takes a breath and talks to him like one person to another. She tells him this world is brutal and dangerous in ways that go well beyond one forest full of monsters. But they both got another chance at something after dying before they had any real chance to live. Both of them. She says it and something crosses her face as her own past flashes through her. Whatever it was, it hits hard enough that she has to actively steady herself before she can continue. She tells him that if he is truly determined to die, then at least go out fighting something. Go out doing something instead of hanging from a branch in a forest alone. She calls him out plainly on whether he genuinely thinks hanging is going to work on someone with his specific set of skills. And then she does something unexpected. She bows her head and asks him to protect her. She says it is selfish and she knows it. She acknowledges that she has no real claim to ask it. But she does not want to die again, and she cannot make it through this forest on her own. He looks at her for a long moment, someone who still wants to live, in a world that makes no promises and offers no guarantees. After whatever it was that happened to her in her previous life, he looks at his hand again and admits quietly that she might have a point, that with these skills he might not be able to die easily no matter what approach he takes. He does not know where the snake thing came from or whether he can actually protect anyone, but he tells her he will try his best. Rana smiles immediately, genuinely, and reaches her hand out toward him. He looks at it for just a moment, then he takes it. Just like that, they are a team. Now they have to actually survive long enough for that to mean something. Rana gets practical immediately, pulling together everything she knows from having been a scout in her previous life. She starts laying out what they need: basic supplies, a location that offers some natural defense, a plan for the immediate future. Kusha spots a cluster of mushrooms nearby and starts moving toward them with a little too much enthusiasm. Rana immediately grabs his arm and tells him to absolutely not touch those.